In 539 BC, the greatest city on earth stood behind walls no army had ever breached, yet it surrendered without a single arrow being fired. Stand before Babylon in its final independent summer, and you would swear the empire was eternal, its gates gleaming, its markets endlessly alive. But beneath that glittering surface, a king had vanished from his own capital, and the god the city worshipped above all others sat abandoned. This is the story of Babylon's last 3 years, of a missing king, a reckless heir, and the Persian storm gathering silently beyond the horizon. 10 years earlier, King Nabonidus left Babylon behind, marching deep into the Arabian desert to the oasis city of Tayma, and never fully returned. He left his own son, Belshazzar, to rule in his place, a young man fond of feasts and wine, but untrained in the brutal arithmetic of empire. Nabonidus was not chasing conquest, he was chasing a vision. Obsessed with the moon god Sin, convinced Marduk's priests had lost their way. Every year the great New Year festival went uncelebrated, the sacred processions silent, and Babylon's priesthood grew increasingly furious. Picture the Ishtar Gate at dawn, its glazed blue bricks and golden lions catching the first light, a monument built to declare permanence itself. Beyond it, the hanging gardens rose in terraced green, irrigated by hidden machinery, a wonder so strange that travelers refused to believe it. Merchants from Egypt, Persia, and India crowded the processional way, trading silver, spices, and stories beneath walls thick enough for chariots. Yet inside the temples, resentment festered, for a king absent so long from his own capital was, in the eyes of the priests, no true king at all. Belshazzar ruled the day-to-day affairs, signing decrees and hosting banquets, while real power quietly slipped through Babylon's marble fingers. Meanwhile, far to the east, a Persian prince was reshaping the map of the ancient world, one conquered kingdom at a time, without pause or mercy. His name was Cyrus, and by the time Babylon noticed him, he had already swallowed the Medes, the Lydians, and half of the civilized known world. Cyrus did not simply conquer with swords, he conquered with patience, offering defeated peoples their gods, their customs, and their dignity. Word of this reached Babylon's discontented priests, who began to wonder whether a foreign king might treat Marduk better than their own had. Diplomats and defectors slipped quietly across the desert, whispering that Cyrus welcomed old gods home, while Nabonidus had shut them away. Babylon's army, once feared across the ancient world, had grown soft on decades of peace, its officers more familiar with parades than battle. Fortifications along the Euphrates were left half-repaired, granaries mismanaged, and vital allies quietly courted away by Persian promises. Nabonidus finally returned to Babylon, sensing danger too late, dragging sacred statues from distant cities inside the walls for protection. This desperate gathering of idols only deepened the outrage of local priesthoods, who saw their gods stolen rather than honored or defended. In October of 539 BC, Cyrus's army finally met Babylon's forces at Opis, near the Tigris River, in a battle that would decide the empire's fate. The defeat was swift and merciless. Babylonian soldiers scattered along the riverbank, and the road to the capital itself lay suddenly open. Days later, the city of Sippar fell without a fight. Its gates simply opened, its garrison melting away before the Persians had even arrived. Panic spread through Babylon's streets, merchants hoarding grain, priests hiding treasures, families whispering behind bolted wooden doors. Nabonidus fled the capital in the chaos, leaving Belshazzar and a frightened court to face an army that had not lost a single major battle. On the 16th of October, Persian forces under General Ugbaru entered Babylon through the Euphrates riverbed, diverted to lower the water. There was no siege, no burning walls, no desperate final stand, only soldiers walking calmly through channels once thought impossibly guarded. The famous gates of Babylon, long said to be unbreakable, were simply left standing open by men who no longer believed their king worth defending. Belshazzar reportedly died that very night, the last defiant voice of a dynasty that had ruled Babylon for less than a full century in total. 17 days later, Cyrus himself entered the ancient city, not as a conqueror wrapped in chains and fire, but dressed as a gentle liberator. He walked the processional way beneath the Ishtar Gate's glazed lions, greeted by crowds who had feared destruction and received mercy instead. Cyrus ordered the sacred statues Nabonidus had gathered returned to their rightful temples, restoring rituals silenced for nearly a decade. He proclaimed himself chosen by Marduk, the very god Nabonidus had neglected, turning Babylon's own religion into justification for conquest. On a clay cylinder inscribed soon after, Cyrus declared he freed captive peoples and restored their gods, an act later called remarkably humane. Exiled communities, including the Judeans held in Babylon for generations, were granted permission to return home and rebuild their temple. Babylon's priest astronomers had spent decades mapping the heavens, and even under a new crown, their calculations shaped calendars for centuries. Babylon itself was not destroyed that autumn. Its walls stood, its markets reopened, and its people simply exchanged one crown for another. But independence was gone forever. The city that once ruled an entire empire had become a jewel set inside someone else's much larger crown. The Ishtar Gate still gleamed, the hanging gardens still bloomed, yet every decree now flowed from a Persian court far beyond the horizon. Historians still debate whether Nabonidus was a visionary reformer or a negligent ruler, but his absence certainly opened Babylon's gates. What is certain is this: an empire built on centuries of power fell not through siege warfare, but through decades of quiet internal decay. The soldiers who once defended these walls chose silence over sacrifice, deciding a foreign king was preferable to their own neglectful one. Babylon's fall reminds us that empires rarely collapse in a single battle. They crumble slowly in temples, courts, and unattended borders. Even the mightiest walls in the ancient world could not protect a city whose own priests and soldiers had quietly stopped believing in it. And yet, despite conquest, despite a vanished king, despite one fateful autumn, Babylon itself refused to simply, quietly disappear from history. Its language, laws, and astronomy shaped the empires that followed, echoing forward through Persian, Greek, and later Roman civilizations. The city that Cyrus entered so peacefully in 539 BC would outlive its own conquerors, its ruins still whispering across the Mesopotamian plain. History never truly disappears, it only changes hands, waiting patiently beneath the sand for those curious enough to dig it back up again. If this journey through Babylon's final days captivated you, consider subscribing for more cinematic explorations of history's lost empires. Tell us in the comments which ancient city or forgotten civilization deserves the next deep dive, and we may bring its story back to life.